Thank you, Cody, and thank you everyone for joining this evening or afternoon, depending on where you're calling from. As Cody said, we are here to help you understand your student loans, understand critical updates of where we're at right now, as we all await a big answer from the Supreme Court within the next month or so. So we do not have answers on the canceled student debt case. And there are some programs, as you'll see, that are still in the work, but we'll try to answer what we can, and we'll keep providing these workshops for you as we learn more information. So with that, we'll just tell you about today's clinic. Again, as Cody mentioned, I'm Natalia Abrams. I'm the president here at Student Debt Crisis Center. We're joined by our friends and partners at Savvy, which is a great tool to help you. For those of you, we know some of you are still paying your student loans right now, and those of you that are concerned about what might happen, there are tools and programs to help you with your student loan debt. Today, we're going to talk briefly about the recent updates to public service loan forgiveness, income-driven repayment plans, and upcoming changes. At the end, we have a lot of time. We have a short deck and a lot of time for Q&A, and great folks from the SDCC team and Savvy teams here to answer your questions and information you can take towards getting loan forgiveness, understanding programs. And then, as always, we just share this disclaimer that we are not financial counselors or attorneys. We're all advocates here to help as much as we possibly can. So, if you've joined us before, this might not be new, but just going over updates for those of you that this is new to. Right now we are still in an extended time. I believe it's the 7th payment pause extension. We will talk about what's next and what's going on for public service loan forgiveness. If you remember, last year there was a public service loan forgiveness waiver that ended on October 31st, but there are some parts of that that have carried over, and that goes into the account adjustments that are occurring in this year in 2023 that have impacts on income-driven repayment plans and public service loan forgiveness, positive impacts. And also this new income-driven repayment plan that has been proposed, not yet implemented, but we are being told will be implemented before we see payments turned off. So moving on to where we're at right now and what we have heard from the administration. The payments are currently on pause, including interest for all federally held loans, or most federally held loans, and that has been extended until June 30th of this year, or until there is a decision in the Supreme Court case. That is when the clock will start, and it will be 60 days after that. So we expect a decision from the Supreme Court on President Biden's cancellation plan to happen by the end of June. And then payments, we have been told, although we still actively fight for this not to happen, but we have been told that payments would resume 60 days after that. So we're looking at sometime at the end of August or September for payments to resume. Right now, with payments on pause, the pause counts towards monthly credits towards public service loan forgiveness. If you have been in default rehabilitation, it counts towards getting you out of rehabilitation. In addition, right now, borrowers can still certify your income, especially if you've had income changes or you've lost your job, for income-driven repayment programs. And this time it also counts during the pause as credit towards income-driven repayment. And I'm going to throw it to Cody to continue on with public service loan forgiveness.
Great. Thank you so much, Natalia. And I just want to remind folks, I think another 50 people have joined since we got started here. If you have questions, use that Q&A button and box to ask your question. We've got our team, some folks at our friends at Savvy are here on the call as well, helping answer questions. So you're definitely here to help. But yeah, there has been a lot of interest in updates to the public service loan forgiveness program. Before I even jump into these updates, I just want to kind of level set for folks. I did see some questions here from recent graduates and parents of recent graduates. So there's this program that exists, and it has existed for over a decade, called the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, or PSLF. And what this program allows is for a borrower who works at a nonprofit or a government entity to have their student loans forgiven after 10 years of repayment in return for that qualifying public service work. So this is a really powerful program that unfortunately didn't work for many, many people over the years due to unnecessary red tape. The good news is that uh, that recently um, the government has decided to try to, cut back this red tape and fix problems with the system that have existed. So one of those fixes was what is called the PSLF waiver. And that waiver made it so that all payments by student loan borrowers count towards public service loan forgiveness, regardless of the loan program or repayment plan. So in the past, a borrower could work in public service for 10 years only to find out that they had the wrong type of loan or were enrolled in the wrong federal repayment plan, things that they could have changed along the way but were never told about. So now, or at least under the waiver, those rules were changed. The waiver also made it so that if you had a PSLF application that was denied, that it would be reviewed for errors. So that meant that folks who had already been denied public service loan forgiveness could have their applications determinations reconsidered. And also under the waiver, credit towards public service loan forgiveness for military service uh, and federal employees was automated. So what would happen was that a veteran or a government employee at the federal government would qualify for public service loan forgiveness and would still miss out on credit, even though the federal government had all the information they needed about their employment to give them the credit. So this waiver kind of automated that connection of data. The problem with the waiver is that it was temporary. So all of these rules applied for people who applied for the PSLF waiver before the deadline of October 31st, 2022. So that was last October. And for some borrowers, they had to consolidate and apply for public service loan forgiveness ahead of this deadline. And I see some folks have already put in the Q&A that they applied ahead of the deadline, and maybe there was errors or miscommunications from their servicer. We're going to answer those questions later on in the workshop. But for now, it's just important for those who are interested in public service to know if you applied ahead of the 31st deadline of last year, October 31st, 2022, these were the rules that were meant to expand your qualifying opportunities. Now, on the next slide, I want to address what if you did not apply for public service loan forgiveness under the waiver ahead of this deadline. There are still options for you to get special benefits that previously did not exist. So one, you should definitely consolidate your loans to qualify for the public service loan forgiveness under the standard rules that have always existed. So there's a lot of people who did not apply for public service loan forgiveness waiver ahead of the October 31st deadline, but they could still do so if they consolidated their not qualifying loans into the right federal loan. We would highly recommend you do so because you can still, the program of public service loan forgiveness still exists. And now is the time to really take advantage of that. And as a reminder, when I say consolidation, we're really talking about non-direct federal student loans. So those would be federal family education loans, Perkins loans, and Parent Plus loans that do not automatically qualify for public service loan forgiveness, but certainly can qualify after completing a consolidation. Now, the standard PSLF rules do not allow borrowers who are retired or are no longer working to receive loan forgiveness. And borrowers who receive teacher loan forgiveness will not have that time applied towards public service loan forgiveness. I'm flagging these standard rules because these were a few other improvements to the system that existed under the waiver if you applied ahead of the October 31st deadline. But for those who did not qualify in time, some of these benefits have expired and will not be available. And I'm seeing some great questions here in the Q&A about public service loan forgiveness. I'm really looking forward to us diving into that shortly. Great. Now, with this slide, I'm going to pass it over to Job at Savvy. Savvy are some of our partners here at Student Debt Crisis Center. They work with us on helping borrowers actually enroll in the programs that we talk about. So Job, take it away.
Thank you, Cody. So later this year, the Department of Education is going to be making some one-time account adjustments that will help borrowers get credit for more past payments. Very similar to the waiver where they are kind of changing the rules up a little bit to let you count more things to forgiveness. That really is the purpose of these adjustments, are to help you get credit for more payments and closer to forgiveness. So later this year, borrowers that have reached either 240 or 300 months worth of total payments for IDR forgiveness, and then 120 payments for PSLF, will start to see their loans forgiven very soon. So the way this account adjustment will work is it's going to go through and look at the entire time that you've been in repayment and add that towards your total. So if you have been in repayment and made 240 or 300 total payments, you would be eligible for automatic IDR forgiveness, which forgives your remaining loan balance. Similar for PSLF, after these adjustments, if you have reached 120 payments for PSLF, you'll be able to have your loan balance forgiven as well. So in order to qualify for these one-time adjustments, you do need to have loans that are held by the Department of Education. So if you are a borrower that has a commercially held FEL, Perkins, or Health Education Assistance loan, it's really in your best interest to consolidate before 2023 ends. That way you can have loans held by the Department of Education and be included in these adjustments. The adjustments are going to be automatic. There isn't an application for them. The only step really is to make sure you have the correct loan types and consolidate if need be, so you can be included. For the borrowers that haven't yet reached that 240 or 300 threshold, you will begin to see updates to your account in early 2024, where they will go through and mark periods as in repayment. That way you can count them to forgiveness as well. So this IDR account adjustment is going to go look at certain periods where you were in repayment and mark them towards forgiveness. So specifically, they are going to go back and give you credit for any months where you in a repayment status, regardless of how much of your payment you made, if it was late, what type of loan you had, what repayment plan you were on. If you made a payment and were considered in repayment status, it's going to be counted towards your forgiveness. They're also going to be giving you credit for certain periods where you were in an extended forbearance. So if you were in forbearance for 12 or more consecutive months or 36 cumulative months, those months will be adjusted to be marked as in repayment as well. That way you can count them towards the totals that you need. They're also going to be giving you credit for months that you were in an economic or military deferment before 2013. So if you were in deferment for any amount of time before 2013 under those two types of deferment, you can have those counted as in repayment and add them to your total as well. Before 2013, the only exception is going to be that in-school deferment though. So unfortunately, that one is not going to count. But other than that, any deferment before 2013, you can count towards that total. And then I think one of the biggest and most beneficial things of this adjustment is they are going to count time in repayment before consolidating. So under kind of the old rules, when you consolidated, your payment count reset to 0, meaning you had to make either 120, 240 more payments in order to get forgiveness. But this adjustment is going to give you credit for all of those payments from before consolidating. That way you can get credit for the payments you've made and get closer to forgiveness. So those adjustments are specific to IDR, but they are going to be making several adjustments for PSLF as well. So that 12 and 36-month forbearance is also going to apply for PSLF. So if you were in a forbearance for more than 12 consecutive months or more than 36 cumulative months, those periods will be marked as in repayment and can count towards your 120 required PSLF payments. These changes are going to be automatic to all PSLF eligible direct loans, including consolidated and unconsolidated Parent Plus loans. So if you have a Parent Plus loan that you consolidated, it will be included and you'll be able to get credit for the payments made before consolidating. If you have a Parent Plus loan that has not yet been consolidated, it will still be adjusted so that you can eventually consolidate and keep credit for those payments. Same thing as with the IDR adjustments. If you have a commercially or federally held FFEL loan and you consolidate that into a direct consolidation loan before the adjustment, you'll be able to get credit for them. So if you have those commercially held FFEL loans, we really do encourage you to consolidate before the end of 2023 so that you can benefit from these adjustments. Later this year as well, the department is going to be making some changes to income-driven repayment plans to make them more affordable for borrowers. So this plan is not yet available. It's still in the proposal stages, but here is what has been proposed. They will be revising one of the plans to help lower monthly payments. So currently, borrowers pay at least 10% of their discretionary income each month under all of the income-driven plans. But under this new plan, borrowers with undergraduate loans would be set at 5% of their discretionary income. So if you are a borrower that has all undergraduate loans, your monthly payment could be cut in half. Also, right now, income-driven repayment plans are based on something called discretionary income. And the way this is calculated is by taking your household income minus 150% of the federal poverty guideline for your family size. These new plans will place the threshold at 225% of the poverty guideline. So it's a little complicated, but really what this means is that more of your money is going to be protected from being included in repayment. So no borrower making under 225% of the federal poverty level will have a student loan payment. So even if you have undergrad and grad loans, you can still likely see your payment reduced because less of your money is going to be counting towards that income-driven repayment plan. Another change is that they're also going to be revising the forgiveness timeline. So currently, borrowers are eligible for forgiveness after either 20 or 25 years of repayment, depending on which plan you are enrolled in. This new plan is going to cut down on those times to give you forgiveness sooner. So after just 10 years, you can get forgiveness if your original loan balance was $12,000 or less. So if you are a borrower, your original loan balance was $12,000 or less, rather than that 20-year period, you can now get forgiveness after 10 years. And I think one of the biggest parts, and one that personally I'm excited about, is that under this new plan, any unpaid interest each month is going to be covered. That way your loan balances are not increasing and leftover interest is not going to accrue. So really beneficial way to have an affordable low monthly payment, not have to worry about that interest increasing your loans and actually making paying them off or getting forgiveness feasible. So like we said, this is just in the proposal stages, not yet available. But once it is, we will let everyone know. That way you can enroll and take advantage of these additional savings. A new program that is now available to borrowers is called Fresh Start, and this is specifically focused on borrowers that are in default. So Fresh Start is a one-time and temporary program that offers special benefits for borrowers that are in default. Normally, getting out of default can be a kind of difficult process, but this Fresh Start program has made it really simple. They will automatically give you benefits like restoring your access to student aid, letting you take out new loans. But you do need to opt into the Fresh Start program in order to get the full benefits. So in order to do this, you just need to reach out to your loan servicer and tell them that you would like to opt in. And there's a couple ways you can do this. you can go to your online account at myeddebt.ed.gov, and you can go through there, send your servicer a message, let them know you would like to opt into Fresh Start. You can also give them a phone call. So you can call your loan servicer, let them know you want to opt in, and they can enroll you as well. If you do call over the phone, it's a pretty quick call, only about 10 minutes. We recommend that you look up your income on your most recent federal tax return. But if you didn't find it, okay. While you're on the phone, the representative will ask you for some information, ask why you're calling, and you can let them know you want to opt into Fresh Start. Sometimes on the phone, they will give you the opportunity to enroll in an income-driven repayment plan, which is why we recommended looking up your income. If you enroll in that income-driven plan, once you're brought out of default, back into good standing, you'll then be put on that income-driven plan so that your monthly payment can be affordable and you don't risk going back into default. And last, if you don't have that online account or can't give them a call, you can always send them mail. So we do have the address right here. In your letter, just be sure to include your personal details like your name, social security number, date of birth, and let them know that you want to opt in to Fresh Start. For those of you that may have loans that are not currently with a loan servicer and are with a collections or guarantee agency, you can also just go ahead and give that agency a call and opt in as well. Once you have opted in, it takes around a month from what we've seen in order for that process to wrap up. During that time, you'll be brought out of default, transferred to a loan servicer marked as in good standing. That way, you are going to be good to go for when payments resume later this year. So if you are a borrower in default, we really do encourage you to take advantage of this Fresh Start since it does have a lot of benefits and is really easy to enroll in. And if you ever have any issues or complaints, the Department of Education does have options to help you. So they do have an office called the Ombudsman's Office, and they are able to help you do things like resolve discrepancies with your loan balances and payments. They can explain interest and collections charges and identify options for resolving your issues. So if you do have any issues with your servicer, student loans, whatever it may be, you can reach out to the Ombudsman's Office to get some assistance. And their email is right here, fsaombudsmanoffice@ed.gov.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. But a ton of great updates and information. There's a lot obviously happening in student debt world. But we've got a good amount of time to address some questions, and I see a lot have come in that are really great. So Sabrina, I think you've maybe been flagging questions that we want to present here for the whole audience.
Yep, I've been looking through and there's a bunch of really great questions here. So I'm going to start asking some of them out loud. So our first question here is, where do we check for this account adjustment and will we be notified? Also, is this for sure happening regardless of the debt ceiling or the Biden's proposed plan?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. And I actually have like information right now and things to look forward to in the future. So one, this is certainly going to happen, the account adjustment. There have been some delays in when to anticipate the kind of completion of all of these account changes, but you know, that ball is already moving and there's no reason to think that it will not occur for everyone who would qualify. One of the things that I wanted to put on folks' radar moving forward is that you can imagine that many borrowers who are already having trouble understanding where they are in repayment wouldn't necessarily fully understand or be aware of how beneficial this adjustment could be. So the Department of Education is committed to building a part of their website where when you log in to look at your federal student loans, you'll also be able to see how much credit you've made, not just towards public service loan forgiveness, but towards the completion of an income-driven repayment plan where there's also loan forgiveness available then. So that is something that's still in the works. We don't have that yet, but in the near future, borrowers will be able to go and see how much credit they have and hopefully fully understand how the account adjustment has moved them closer to having their debt forgiven or relief provided through these federal programs. So stay tuned on that one.
Awesome. Another question I'm seeing here is, how can I get an update on my PSLF application?
Well, sure, I can jump in here, and Job also definitely add in, because I know you all are processing and helping tons of PSLF borrowers. I guess to answer that question and also address some other questions I've seen in the Q&A, there are folks who have applied for PSLF under standard rules, under the PSLF waiver, and one of the things we're hearing by many of them is that MOHELA, the loan servicer, the federal loan servicer who's in charge of helping PSLF borrowers, has really dropped the ball in communicating how many credits borrowers receive, denying applications, miscalculating or miscounting credits. So there's a lot of confusion out there. We do anticipate that many of these errors will be resolved. And so I know I've heard from borrowers who have received multiple communications with MOHELA, and it's been resolved over time. We also are encouraging folks to contact the Student Loan Ombudsman's office. That is the U.S. Department of Education's Student Loan Ombudsman's office. You can present grievances with your servicer there, and they will actually be able to contact your servicer, get accurate information, and report back to you the realities of your scenario. I say that while also recognizing that even their communication right now is a bit slow, because everyone in the student debt space is just overwhelmed with the amount of communications that need to be addressed. So reach out. You may not get a response immediately, but you will get an accurate response from the ombudsman if you feel there's been some error with your loan servicer. Job, I don't know if you've got any other tips for a borrower who wants credit numbers, but that's just addressing some of the common issues, I guess, that we're hearing.
For sure. And I will say MOHELA is very backed up. You know, they dropped the ball, so it's not uncommon to see issues with them, but also it can take a while to even get results from them. Right now, the average processing time that we're seeing is anywhere from 12 to 16 weeks. Once you submit that employment certification form, be prepared to sit tight and wait a while to hear back. If you are still within that window, you know, definitely okay to wait. But if it's been longer than that, you can try reaching out to MOHELA, or as Cody has said, the Ombudsman's office is a really great resource since they are able to get in contact with your servicer and get you those updates.
And I will say, just from what we've seen from student loan borrowers that have been on our workshops, that have applied for public service loan forgiveness, that those looking to get like total cancellation that have reached the 120 credits, it's been coming in waves. We just saw a previous wave. There are still more waves. They were inundated with over 600,000 applications, or millions of applications. They've already canceled 600,000 people. So there have been serious delays. So I want to back up what Job and Cody have been saying. I believe Sabrina, who's helping field questions on this call, I think it took more than 9 months, Sabrina, for you to even receive any communication that you had been accepted into the program. Is that correct?
That's correct. I had applied, I believe, in August of 2022, and I hadn't heard back until maybe more than 8 months later, any notice from the Department of Ed on what was happening with my loan. So we're definitely seeing a long waiting period with all of this. And I know that Orlando has been helping to field some questions as well. So Orlando, feel free to jump in and ask a few.
Sure. And thanks for that, Sabrina. So it looks like Dennis had a quick question. He said, yesterday I was told by MOHELA that because I retired with 117 payments toward PSLF, that I needed to return to work for 3 months to make payments. And he asks, is there any hope for reconsideration?
You know, that's a great situation. So it technically it's 120 payments. It depends on when you applied, Dennis. If it was before October 31st of last year, that's when the waiver period. So being retired should not have been a problem. But you need that 120 credit. I would say this is something to complain to the ombudsperson, being so close within a few credits. You know, no guarantees, but that is the person that could potentially do something. Unfortunately, you do have to be working in a public service job as of right now and reach the 120 credits in order to get public service loan forgiveness. It's an all or nothing kind of thing. So I'm very sorry to hear, Dennis, that you're so close. And if I were in your shoes, I would complain to the ombudsperson.
And then someone asked, for PSLF, if you miss the waiver deadline, can you still qualify or get credit for previous payments / years of work for a qualified employer? And then they asked, or is the 5 years of past payments lost now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. When we should be as clear as possible. Public service loan forgiveness existed before the waiver, and it continues to exist regardless of the October 31st, 2022 deadline for the waiver. And PSLF has always allowed a borrower who met all of the qualifying factors to retroactively apply time that they worked for a qualifying employer since October of 2007. So if you're just today finding out about public service loan forgiveness, and over the last X amount of years, you were working for a qualifying employer and meeting all of the other factors, you can count that time. And that, you know, that's separate from the deadlines associated with the PSLF waiver. So there's no reason to think previous work would not qualify. Of course, though, you do need to meet those qualifying factors that are part of kind of standard rules.
And I have a great question from Sivan. They ask, if I apply for a new IDR program to get a lower monthly payment, will my 240-month period start over?
I can take this one. Great question. And by changing your repayment plan, it will not. Specifically under these upcoming account adjustments, they're going to give you time in repayment, even on the wrong repayment plan, to be counted towards your forgiveness threshold. So even if you switch your income-driven repayment plan to a new one, that's not going to reset you back to zero.
Hey, great. Thank you, Job. There's a question from someone that asks, I filed my PSLF a week before the deadline, received a form letter around January 1st saying that I had only one qualifying payment, ignored it, presuming they were still working through the backlog, and they'll write me with more accurate updated info once they get a human eyes on my application. Is that right? And Cody, I saw that you flagged that question.
Yeah, I think that's, essentially related to a question we answered a bit ago, but this is likely one of the borrowers who's gotten some sort of some sort of communication from Mohila regarding their credit count, and it's wrong. Like we said, there is a certain level of being patient here. We expect many of these issues to resolve themselves, and you will get more communications as they are. You can always try to contact Mohila, even though, like Job said, they are behind, and they are not very communicative at this moment. And that other tip we suggested, You can also contact the Department of Education Student Loan Ombudsman's Office. They can essentially start a case and try to investigate this on your behalf. They too are moving slowly a little bit, but they can help address this as well.
If I can just add to that a couple tips for interpreting that MOHELA letters, because they can be really confusing. First off, MOHELA does process all of your employment certification forms individually. So it is possible that you could get a letter back only approving some of your payments, and then you'll get credit for the rest once those other forms are processed. In addition, if you consolidated in order to qualify for PSLF, something we're seeing is where they are sending you that first letter that will only count the payments on your new consolidation loan. So it looks like you have 1, 2, maybe even no payments. A second letter then comes a couple weeks later, giving you credit for all the past payments. So even in those cases, it's still a sit and wait because they are backed up. But just know that we do see that a lot where letters will come in and then a couple of weeks later, you'll get another one with an updated payment count.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Cody. I got a question from Kevin that asks, my loans are with Nelnet, and they recommend that I consolidate with FAFSA in hope for forgiveness. Is this a good idea? I heard that I could be taxed on the loan forgiveness.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could give a general tip on the consolidation piece and, answer that concern about forgiveness. Consolidation's always been an option available to borrowers, and this is for people who want to either combine multiple loans, create a new loan that qualifies for newer programs when an older loan may not have. There's a couple of reasons why you may consolidate. In the past, we would have some reservations to encourage folks to consolidate because there were some consequences that made it a difficult decision. In these new programs and these recent updates that are designed to help, the Department of Education has tried to remove many of the barriers that would encourage you not to consolidate. And so today, if you're a borrower who wants to be eligible for a program that you're not currently eligible for, it's likely the right decision to consolidate to become eligible. There aren't as many or any negative consequences. As far as that second piece, borrowers who are enrolled in an income-driven repayment plan for 20 or 25 years, depending on the program, can access student loan relief at the end. And it is true that the federal law has said you would be taxed on that forgiveness. But the good news is that part of reforms in the last few years in Congress was a temporary moratorium on taxing debt forgiveness of all forms. And, even here in the state of California, we recently passed a law to prevent state taxes. So what used to be a concerning tax issue for borrowers who receive relief on their student loans, at least until 2025, it's no longer a concern. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was extended. So I would encourage anyone who needs a lower monthly payment to pursue those affordable monthly payment options and be optimistic that these reforms that have made tax problems less of a serious issue, that reform will continue long into the future, hopefully.
Thanks for that, Cody. And it looks like this was a question that you flagged, Cody, from Claire, who asked, are there any programs for people who live on Social Security and still owing on student loans?
Yeah, so I think this just goes back to our general discussion here about IDR programs. We hear from a lot of older borrowers who are, not just older borrowers, disabled borrowers, folks who are on fixed income and are struggling with student loans. And, these income-driven repayment plans are incredibly powerful for them. If you make very little money or no money, you can have a monthly payment that's as low as $0 per month under one of these plans. And you could possibly seek forgiveness, debt relief after 20 or 25 years. So a borrower who's getting income from Social Security really wants to manage that monthly payment and keep it low, because they're fixed income, and an IDR program is great for them. And one other tip or consideration is that a borrower who has Social Security income could have that income withheld if they default on their student loan. So it is critically important for them that they have a manageable monthly payment and that they do not fall into default, which could endanger their Social Security income.
Thanks for that, Cody. And we have a quick question from Carol, who said, should we pay the interest on our pause loans before the forgiveness plan is decided, or will that interest amount change when the loan forgiveness, when we get the loan forgiveness adjustment?
I'm not sure I fully understand their question, but if they're concerned about forgiveness not helping them with their interests, all of the programs we're talking about, like public service zone forgiveness and forgiveness at the end of an IDR program, would wipe away both your principal balance and your interest. So I don't think there's any thing that needs to be managed there as far as addressing their interest and principal balance.
And then just going off of that, Cody, and this relates to public service loan forgiveness, but someone asked, if I did not complete my degree, can I qualify for a loan forgiveness if I work for a state institution for more than 25 years?
I can take this one. So even if you didn't complete your degree, you can still apply for PSLF. That program doesn't require you to have graduated or to have the degree. It's simply based on your employment. So if you have been working at a government organization, nonprofit, which are the qualifying employers for PSLF, you can submit your employment certification form and get credit for the payments you've made during that time.
Great, thank you, Job. And just going back to the ombudsman, a few people have asked if you could just repeat the web address for the ombudsman and any folks that you can contact for assistance with issues on both public and private student loans.
I'm sending the ombudsman's email in the chat right here for everyone. So that is the FSA ombudsman's email that you can utilize in order to get in contact with them.
Thank you so much, Joe. I was about to drop it too, and I guess I was on mute the whole time. You can find this information too at studentaid.gov, which is the Department of Education's website. But Job just dropped it in there. It's FSA Ombudsman Office at ed.gov. And I think the second part of that question was, who could we contact for other types of help? And I do want to just drop in here a link to Savvy's tool. Job is joining us from our friends at Savvy. They have a tool that can help you enroll in these programs, and it is available to our supporters at no cost if you use this link I'm going to drop in the chat. So definitely check that out as well.
Like Cody said, it is free for all of you, and it's a really great resource We will help you confirm things like your loan types. We can let you know if your employment qualifies for PSLF. Then after you've filled out that first application that just gets all the general info from you, it can help you enroll in an income-driven plan, apply for PSLF. So it's a really great free resource to help you understand what options are available to you. So I definitely do recommend signing up at that link and starting that application to see what you qualify for.
All right, thanks, y'all. Someone also asked, and just going back to income-driven repayment, they asked, are there any IDR programs that don't consider your spouse's income if you file jointly?
I can take this one too. So currently there are not. If you file your taxes jointly with your spouse, you are going to be required to provide your spouse's income documentation as well. When you file your taxes, because it kind of merges your incomes into one adjusted gross income, that's why you are required to provide spouse information.
And Job, just going off of IDR, another person asked just about should we apply it to a new IDR program now, or should we wait until these new adjustments are implemented?
So as of right now, those adjustments are expected to be implemented before payments resume, but it is still in the proposal stages. So I always like to be on the side of caution, and I personally would recommend enrolling in an income-driven plan now. That way, if payments do resume before that plan is implemented, you'll know what your payment is going to be, and you'll have that affordable monthly payment by the time payments resume. Plus, you can always change your income-driven repayment plan at any point. You're never locked into that. So if you enroll now and then that new plan does end up coming out soon, you'll always have the option to change to the other one.
And Job, just going off of consolidation, someone asked, I have 4 graduate student loans, and they just asked about, are you suggesting I consolidate them into one? They're all with Fed loan or AidVantage now. Also, will my undergrad payments count for an account adjustment?
So you're only required to consolidate if you are trying to pursue PSLF and you don't have direct loans. If all of your loans are already direct, you won't be required to consolidate. It may still be in your interest to, because you can only have one student loan with one interest rate. So you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons on whether or not it's the best option for you. You're not going to be required to, though. And I do apologize. Can you repeat the second half of that question?
It was just about undergraduate loans and whether those would count to the account adjustment.
Gotcha. So loans do kind of earn credits individually. So if you went to school and you have undergraduate loans that you took out and then you went back to school and took out graduate loans, those loans would have separate payment counts, meaning they are going to be forgiven at different points. So that means your undergrad loan probably has a higher payment count and could be forgiven first, and then your grad loans will be forgiven later after they reach the threshold as well. If you already paid off the undergrad loans, that's not going to affect your grad loans. They kind of do keep the payment counts separate. One thing I will say is under the account adjustments that are coming up, they have said that if you consolidate loans with different payment counts, they will apply the highest one to the new loan. So in this case, it really could be in your best interest to consolidate, because if you consolidate loans with different payment counts, whatever the highest is will be applied to that new loan so that they all have one payment count and can be forgiven at the same time.
All right, thank you for that. And it looks like Terry had a quick question about a consolidation as well. So, he was just saying that their loans are broken up into 6 different loans, but the crux of the question is, am I able to consolidate federal loans even if sold to private lenders?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Orlando. And there's maybe some nuance here that's worth parsing out. So there are, under the federal student loan program, several types of federal loans. There are direct federal loans in which the federal government has issued the money directly to students. There are older types of loans called federal family education loans. Some of these loans, these older loans, could be owned by the Department of Education, and some could be owned by a private bank. Regardless, if you have federal student loans, you can always consolidate them if you haven't consolidated them already. But I just want to put an extra underline under this because I'm not sure if this borrower is asking about federal family education loans, or are they talking about someone who has private student loans. These are the kind of student loans you get from a bank. You never go through the Department of Education. If you have federal student loans and private student loans from a private bank, those you cannot combine together under the federal program. So it's a bit messy, and it's some folks can be confused between those different types of loans. But if you have any federal loan from the Department of Ed, you can always pursue a consolidation option at least once. If you have a private student loan, that's out of the picture.
And then just going back to PSLF, Jim had a question about, are there any special provisions for Parent Plus on PSLF that can help those of us close to retirement?
So there is nothing specifically addressing Parent Plus loans. However, Parent Plus loans are being included in some of the upcoming improvements. So specifically for the account adjustment, Parent Plus loans will be included in that. So it is possible that you could get some more payments that are putting you closer to the 120 on those Parent Plus loans. Those adjustments, remember, include payments from before consolidating, those forbearance and deferment periods, things like that. So Parent Plus loans can be included in that, and that may give you a couple more payments, putting you closer to that 120 before it's time for you to retire.
Awesome. Joe, I'm looking at the clock. We've got 6 minutes here. So I think I'm going to try to help us burn through some questions here, and I'm going to flag the ones that are, I think, the most that would help the most people here, if that's okay. And we'll kind of do a lightning round in these last minutes. Awesome. So someone says, I do not qualify for public service loan forgiveness. Are there other types of student debt relief available in the existing programs?
If you do not qualify for PSLF, in most cases, your best option is going to be that income-driven forgiveness. You can enroll in an income-driven plan to get an affordable monthly payment, and after that 20 to 25-year repayment, you'll be able to have that remaining balance forgiven as well.
Yep. The income-driven repayment plans are an option. There's also other loan forgiveness programs we don't have the time to talk about on this workshop, but we do talk about in other workshops. So there's relief for folks who are disabled, relief for folks who have been defrauded by a for-profit college, and a few other kind of niche type issues that you need to qualify for. So definitely, if you want to learn more about that, go to studentaid.gov, where there's a lot of information about these programs. All right, another question was from more folks. They've submitted paperwork on public service loan forgiveness. They have not heard back from their student loan servicer, many of them for months. Joe, could you repeat just one more time? What should a borrower do in that scenario?
Yep. Again, they do have a high processing time. Currently, it's like 12 to 16 weeks. If you haven't heard back, you can always try reaching out to Mohila. If they are not helping you and you can't reach them, you can always reach out to the FSA Ombudsman's office for help, where they can look into your situation, help get you an update as well. And their email is in the chat.
Awesome. All right. We're making good progress here. And good. I see we've actually addressed a good amount of these already. I saw at least a few folks earlier on in the conversation wanted to know if there's anything being done to address the high interest rates or just help reduce interest rates specifically. I'm happy to take that because I know this is something that's top of mind for our supporters. I will say, the types of loan forgiveness we've been talking about today do provide relief on both your principal balance and your interest. We know it's continuing to be a big issue. So definitely keep an eye out for future reforms. The recently announced new IDR program is designed to help reduce the piling up of debt that happens with these interest rates. We definitely are tracking as advocates an anticipated increase in the interest rates for new students. So have it on your radar and we will keep you all updated. But I wouldn't say there's anything specifically designed for just tackling student loan interest rates in the existing programs as they are today.
Cody?
Yep.
Can you also just share for folks in the chat the Savvy link again for, folks that we're not going to be able to get to answer your questions, but if you need help, I'm seeing, people that need help with their Parent Plus loans or with existing IDR programs. This is definitely a place that can help you in the meantime before we have our next workshop sometime next month.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This tool is incredibly helpful for folks. As Job said, not only does it help you enroll, but it'll help you stay on top of the enrollment process, which is a huge issue. For years, we would have these workshops and we'd have to send folks back out into the wild and hope that everything worked out for them. Now we actually have a tool and folks who can help, guarantee it. I'm going to put this in the chat. We will also include this in a follow-up email that is sent out tomorrow. But for those who are with us right now, the link for the special link you need to use this tool at no cost for SDCC supporters is app.bysavvy.com/register/borrowers. And I'm putting that right there in the chat window for everyone as well. All right, I think we could check off one or two more questions here in the last few minutes. And then, as I mentioned, we will make sure to send as many resources as we can in our follow-up email tomorrow. So I think we'll do one more question here and let's make it a good one. So a lot of folks are asking, including Gwen here is asking, where can you go to get a count of your credits towards public service loan forgiveness if you have not heard from your servicer?
Great question. You can reach out to the Ombudsman's office. They can help you get that update in order to try and get some progress moving. Just kind of the recurring theme is that MOHELA is really backed up. So if you haven't heard yet, and it's been past that 12 to 16 week period, that's when you can reach out to MOHELA or the Ombudsman's office in order to try and get an update with your payment count.
Awesome. Well, Job, I want to thank you for so much for joining us. Our friends here at Savvy are some of the most knowledgeable folks that we work with when it comes to how to navigate all of these complex processes. Orlando, Sabrina, Natalia, other members of the Student Debt Crisis Center team, really appreciate you joining us. I know it's late on the East Coast and, it's a lot of information to cut through after a long day's work. And of course, everyone who joined us, our supporters, thank you so much. Stay tuned for the follow-up email. And of course, stay tuned for more workshops. We are hosting these all the time, and we'll have more kind of topics and other issues to cover on workshops ahead. Thanks again. Have a good night.